Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into a topic that really flips the script on some common relationship assumptions, and that is men and what they actually really look for in romantic relationships.
That's interesting. Yeah, we tend to just like kind of automatically think of women as being the ones who are way more, relationship focused.
Totally.
But the research we're looking at today really suggests there's a lot more to the story.
Yeah, exactly. And so this article that we're going to be diving into today, it actually makes the argument that men may even place greater importance on romantic relationships
Wow.
than women do.
Yeah,
Kind of makes you think like, whoa, have we had this backwards this whole time?
for sure. And understanding why that might be the case is so crucial, especially, if we want to actually create, relationships that are healthier and more fulfilling for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's kind of unpack this a little bit.
Mhm.
The article starts off with this really common observation, and that is, how many times have we all seen like the guy who hits the gym super hard after a breakup?
Right. Yeah, it's almost like a cliche.
It's like the cliche, right?
Yeah.
But what the article is suggesting is that maybe it's not just about getting ripped.
Yeah.
What if it's actually about like trying to fill a void, and that void is left by this relationship that maybe was a lot more important to his emotional well-being than we realized?
That's a really interesting point, and it kind of ties into some of the research that's out there that shows that men a lot of times don't actually have the same kind of emotional support networks as women
Well,
do.
that's interesting.
Women tend to tend and befriend, and that's an actual psychological response.
Oh, wow.
That, when women are under stress, they tend to seek out social support and they really build those connections.
Whereas guys just kind of like,
Men, on the other hand, often rely more on what are called transactional relationships.
I see. So not like the deep emotional sharing.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Think about it. You might go golfing with your buddies every weekend,
Yeah.
but would you call them up if you were feeling, really down?
Probably not.
Probably not, right? So those relationships are definitely important in their own way,
Yeah.
but they don't necessarily offer that same kind of like emotional intimacy that you might get from a romantic partner. So men might be placing a much heavier burden on their partner to kind of, give them that support.
Okay, that totally makes sense. But then hold on. If men are leaning on their partners more for emotional support,
Mm-hmm.
then shouldn't they be like the ones who are, more eager to actually settle down?
That's where things get really interesting.
Really down.
And that's where I think, this paradox really comes in. Yeah, like if men are placing, so much importance on these relationships, then why do so many of them seem so emotionally unavailable? Especially, now, like in the age of dating apps and stuff.
Right.
It's like there's this huge disconnect between like what they're saying they want and how they're actually acting.
It's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? And the article kind of dives into this idea of nature versus nurture to try to like explain it.
Okay.
It's basically saying that even though men might be, like hardwired to want that connection, they're also getting all of these messages from society telling them to suppress their emotions.
Yeah, like the classic boys don't cry thing.
Exactly.
We've all grown up with that, where society kind of just expects men to be stoic, to be strong, to be the providers.
Right.
And that can really create a conflict when it comes to actually expressing like their needs and their vulnerabilities.
It's like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Totally.
Because on the one hand, you have, this kind of biological drive to find a partner and build a family. And the article even talks about like the whole evolutionary psychology thing,
Right.
Where men are kind of driven to spread their genes.
It makes sense, in a more like primal context.
Yeah.
But, in today's world, like that drive doesn't always translate very well to finding like lasting love.
Exactly.
They can actually kind of clash with it.
And then on the other hand, they're being told that showing any kind of emotion is a weakness.
Right.
So how do you reconcile those two things?
Yeah, it's like a recipe for self-sabotage, really. They might be like yearning for this deep connection,
Yeah.
but they end up kind of pushing it away because they've been conditioned to believe that showing their true feelings is going to somehow make them less of a man.
And then you throw dating apps into the mix.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, it just gets so much more complicated.
For sure. It's like a breeding ground for that disconnect.
I mean, think about it. So many dating apps are designed around just like, casual encounters,
Yeah.
like instant gratification, swipe, swipe, swipe onto the next one.
Yeah.
It's not exactly like, the best environment for actually fostering a deep and meaningful connection with somebody.
Totally. And it just widens the gap between what men actually might truly want. like a stable, loving partnership.
Right. And then how they're behaving in like this digital dating landscape, It's like
Yeah.
they're stuck in this cycle of like seeking out connection, but then pushing it away because they don't know how to navigate it in a healthy way.
So what's the solution? Like, how do we actually break this cycle?
Well, the article suggests that some pretty big shifts need to happen, both in terms of like, societal expectations
Okay.
and individual behavior.
Okay, I'm listening. What kind of shifts are we talking about here?
Well, for starters, I think we really need to like rethink how we define masculinity. It's about encouraging men to be more emotionally open, to see vulnerability not as a weakness, but as like a strength, you know.
It's about letting them know it's okay to express their needs and desires without feeling like they're going to be judged or ridiculed?
Exactly. And it's also about creating dating platforms that prioritize genuine connection over, this kind of superficial swiping that we see so much of.
Right. Yeah.
Like, we need spaces where people can actually feel safe to be themselves, to open up and let somebody in. That's so important. And it's not just about changing dating apps. It's about changing the entire conversation around relationships and what it means to be a man in a relationship. It's about recognizing that men have emotional needs too, and that those needs are just as valid as anybody else's.
Yeah, absolutely. But it can't just be like a top-down change. It has to start with individuals too.
Right. And that kind of brings us back to our listener. Like, what can we do in our own lives, in our own relationships to support the men around us? What are like some small, concrete steps we can take to foster more emotional openness and connection?
I mean, it can be as simple as being a good listener, really listening. When a man in your life is trying to open up to you, creating a space where he feels safe to express himself, without fear of judgment.
And it's about challenging those harmful stereotypes, those ingrained ideas about what it means to be manly, like calling them out when you see them, even if it's just in casual conversation.
Exactly. It's about making it clear that strength and vulnerability aren't mutually exclusive, that in fact it takes real strength to be vulnerable, to let your guard down and show your true self.
So true. And, for anybody out there who is looking for a meaningful relationship and is, tired of the whole shallow swiping game,
Yeah.
I actually want to tell you about an app that's trying to do things a little differently. It's called Sunday, and it's specifically designed for people who are serious about finding a real connection.
Oh, that's interesting. How's it different from other dating apps?
Well, for one thing, there's no endless swiping. Sunday really focuses on quality over quantity. They match you with people who share your values and are looking for the same kind of relationship that you are.
It's like they're taking that intentionality we were just talking about and
Yeah.
actually building it into the platform.
Exactly. So if you're interested in learning more, you can head over to www.mysunday.love and join the wait list. You might just find what you've been searching for.
At the end of the day, this deep dive has really shown me that it's not about who wants love more, men or women. It's about understanding the unique challenges that we all face and navigating relationships and creating a world where everybody feels empowered to embrace, both their strength and their vulnerability.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.